Like a thunderbolt from Zeus, your main man returns to your living room. Today, Dungeons and Dragons. Rangers. We're going to be talking to class from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, first edition, till now. Now, the Ranger is an interesting sort of warrior. He's long been married to 2 weapons and a bow. He has 2 completely different styles of fighting, and he's very good at both of them. He's specialized, and he's broad, all at the same time. Let's start Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, first edition. The Ranger was awed by the current standard, because in AD&D first edition, he had 2 hit dice at first level, 2d8. That's what he got at first level, which means at first level, you got a big dump of hit points. Particularly if your game master allowed you max. Most game masters I've ever played with over the years have allowed max hit points. Some would make you roll at first level, but not very many. That meant without a constitution bonus, you're rolling with 16 hit points out the gate. If you had an 18, you're rolling with 20. That means you rolled with the same as a barbarian with 20, Unearthed Arcana style. Or, if both of you had a con of, say, 14, you had more hit points by 4 than a barbarian at first level, which is a little odd because Rangers keep going up, and they have less hit points than a fighter. You get 1d8 every level after that. Made them strange, a little odd mechanically. Mechanical oddity does not bother me. It's just a simple commentary on the class and the beginning and first edition there. I have a bit of water. Perhaps you should at home as well. Now, after we've had our enjoyable H2O break, we're going to resume looking at that first edition now. Being able to fight with 2 weapons. And typically, you'll see like a long sword and a short sword, which sadly would sometimes turn into 2 long swords, get a little silly, get a little ridiculous, and the Ranger could really be a power gaming problem. And we're going to get into that about the time we get to 3rd to 3.5, some of the real problems there. But the character also has that affinity towards animals. That's right, not only can you fight with 2 weapons, not only can you use a bow, but you're going to be associated with animals. This eventually turns into an animal companion. Rangers are typically the favorite warrior class of 98% of female gamers out there. They love the animal companion. They love the outdoorsy, the extra skills, the light armor, and still being able to be pretty badass with weapons. And the ranged weapons also seem to really appeal to a lot of female gamers. I don't think a lot of female gamers are as desirous to grab a 2-handed battle axe or a military fork and just run into the enemies, smiting them, smashing them, and teaching them what's really good. It's just my observation. But you will really see a lot of female gamers who love their Ranger. Ladies out there, leave in the comment box below why you love a Ranger, because we know here on Your Main Man Speaks that you do in fact love those Ranger classes. The Ranger, it can really, in some ways, butt up against a Paladin, and in other ways, butt up against a Barbarian. A Ranger can be anything from this noble, princely knight to a savage woman living off the lands and clubbering birds. So it brings a lot of different archetypes and a lot of different ideas to the class. The class has always been light armored. It's typically studded leather. In fact, Ranger from Forgotten Realms, from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons cartoon show with Dungeon Master that we used to have on Saturday morning cartoons. There was a Ranger right in there. He has a bow, shoots magical lightning arrows, and studded leather armor. Right there, right at the shoot, you're going to see the most iconic Ranger of the actual game. I think his name was Hank, wasn't it? He has studded leather armor, and so very, very, very often you see that studded leather. It gives you that extra armor class bonus, but it's not good for the hide and shadows and move silently. And you got rolls in both of those in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. You had the ability to hide in shadows and move silently, just like a thief, which gave the character a whole other interesting aspect. Now, you weren't going to be ever running around with a plate mail, although you could. There was nothing preventing you from running around with plate mail. but it would take away that hide and shadow and move silently. So that was sort of the reason why you wanted to stay to leather armor, to studded leather, to a pair of magic bracers, and a cloak of protection, a ring of protection, whatever it was, versus just going full plate mail like a fighter. So it helped make your character different, which is always a thing that adds to the game. So, my character's different, and here's why. That's a good thing. So, I think that's really important to think about when we think about that character. You're going to play a ranger. Okay, what makes a ranger? So, another thing to talk about there, though, is spells. Rangers have spells. They would have druidic-like spells, or plant and animal, sphere domain spells, special spells to druids that really make the class different because they have this divine connection, this connection to nature, sort of like a druid as opposed to necessarily being connected to a god, although you certainly see a lot of connection to nature gods like a Sylvanus or a Shantea or an Eldath, something of that nature, and having a ranger connected in that way. Rangers were, in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, they start off being human, half-elf, and elf, and that's it. Of course, we see that change later in a lot of different ways. Now, Rangers in AD&D First Edition, as it comes out, cannot specialize. Only the fighter can specialize. However, if we look at Unearthed Arcana and those rules, they support not only specialization, weapon specialization means using 2 slots in a weapon, getting a +1 to hit and a +2 to damage, and being able to attack 3 times per 2 rounds. They could become double specialized or mastered in a weapon by spending 3 slots in that weapon, now getting a +3 to hit and a +3 to damage, and just ludicrously lighting people up. They could go just as high as a fighter and put the beat down just like a fighter now, which really upped a ranger's power level. Being able to specialize in a weapon really makes a character more powerful, and then being able to double specialize was a huge advantage. Remember, there's not really much in the way of feats. All they had was weapon proficiencies. That was it. And the only proto feat available at that point is specialization. Then the next one's double specialization. Then we slowly, through second edition, we see a ton of proto feats coming out. As we move into second edition, for the ranger, we can see. Oh, and of course, I kind of forgot the whole heart of the matter in AD&D First Edition. Rangers were the ultimate racists. They were speciesists. They were hate-filled hate mongers. They did not have any degree of compassion or tolerance for those they disdained. They disdained giants and all kinds of giants in AD&D First Edition. They would come and put a beating on a giant and give them just the sort of woe that they always deserved. This changes in AD&D Second Edition. Of course, it's just giants. That could get very old after a while in AD&D First Edition. There may be some variant Dragon magazine, someone's going to quote this or that, but I'm talking about, the real mechanics of the game. And we see those in AD&D Second Edition, where all of a sudden it's pick your choice. Yeah, it might be giants, but what about orcs? What about troglodytes? What about mind flayers? Somebody's got to put a beating on them too. It's too long in the mind flayer not experience racism, and that just isn't right. And by the hand of the ranger, soon they shall. That's right. And let's not forget gnomes. The gnomes make a wonderful target for your ranger's hatred, or Kinder, or Warforged, even though they don't exist yet. It's still, you could think, no, they're coming, and I'm going to have races against Warforged, because I'm getting them. But it was really just one thing then. It wasn't, as you had, we'll talk about that when we get to it. But we see spells continue on in the second edition, and rangers become more a generalized fighter type in AD&D Second Edition. In fact, I think they get bumped up to D10s for hit points. I'm pretty sure they do in AD&D Second Edition. Still that move silently, still the hide and shadows, still pretty much using leather or studded leather armor. That sort of idea and design. There's a ton of, there's Jack the Giant Slayer, Robin Hood, Strider, all sorts of archetypes that they give you for rangers. And they talk about that. They do a good job in AD&D Second Edition Player's Handbook of bringing those different quintessential archetypes for any of the classes up to sort of get your mind going, okay, well, this guy, doesn't mean you have to play that guy, but that's a guy that would be this class. Okay. Well, if that guy, and that guy are all different well, wait, I could do this, and I could do this, I could do this. Okay. That's going to kind of work for me. A ranger could come into an animal and make a roll and kind of befriend that animal, end up getting animals to follow him. And I think that played in to their charisma bonus as well, or to their charisma, their hirelings and so forth in that edition. We see that carry over into 3rd edition, where Rangers become a huge problem in 3rd edition. They're the class that probably got the most augmentation from 3 to 3.5 of the base classes. In AD&D, you played a class, you stayed a class. You couldn't opt out of the class instead of dual classing for humans and humans only. You could not do that. You could not be something different. So I mean, if you're a ranger, you stayed a ranger. So whatever special abilities you had were irrelevant. They could top load special abilities in AD&D classes. It really wasn't a problem. But all of a sudden, that becomes a huge problem in AD&D. In 3.0, because they just top-loaded classes. You can look at the write-ups, the builds. They're top-loaded because they did AD&D stuff. They go, well, Rangers get all this right off the bat, and they should because it's the Ranger, right? Yep, okay. So they just put all this stuff in there. It seemed everybody that Power Game, from what I heard, I actually don't think I ever saw anyone do this, but I heard astronomical amounts of complaints about this from people way before I was even doing a YouTube channel. 1 level of Ranger. 1 level of Ranger, 1 level of Ranger. Because it gave you so much. You go, 1 level of Ranger, then I start taking all my fighter levels. That's a problem. It is a problem when the class holds no more merit to you than I grab a level and then I go on. If for mechanical reasons all you invest in a class is 1 level, that's fine. But, for story reasons, for reasons like that, or for creating the character you're envisioning mechanically. But if it's just a means to an ends of power gaming, that's not straight. You're like, oh, well, take this level and then this and this. And in 3.0, they had D10s for hit points. They had 4+ int for skills. They had a ton of class skills, and they had a ton of abilities at first level. You had the dual weapons and all kinds of stuff at first level. In 3.5, they knocked that dual weapon stuff back to 2nd level, or maybe even 3rd. But it was kind of an odd thing. It's like, well, wait, why do you learn this then? How? It was kind of it was dropped back for a mechanical reason, which is always kind of difficult to justify. You go, oh, well, now they learned it, and this is the story of learning it. But really, we all know it was a mechanical concern, and that's the reason they pushed it back. We see in 3.0 a great degree of refinement to the species hatred enemy, and that frothing hatred of the Ranger has always been a good source of jokes around our gaming group. The Rangerists, if you get where I'm coming from, is very interesting because they have this complete hatred, and they even get like social penalty to the species that they're. Of course York did it. Of course York did it. Let's kill the York. Let's kill the York. Let's turn down. They're going to have a difficulty having diplomacy with the York. So it makes a great scene when you have that Ranger who has the racial hatred of orcs, who has to deal with orcs in a way that he can't pop off with violence. It could create a great scene. It can really allow it to be showcased a lot better than, okay, well, you fight orcs and kill them and do extra damage. No. Put them at some point in a scene where they have to actually confront the thing they hate and have to role play with it. Have to be in a scene where other people are role playing with it and just pacing around and getting so angry in character, of course. That can create a wonderful scene and really help to spotlight the Ranger and help him to become more interesting. We see in the 3.0 line that you get more species that you can hate. Apparently, a lot of people will get upset and go, oh, well, they're taking werewolves and this and that, elementals. And sometimes people just take goofy stuff that made no sense. Like, well, no. I mean, what's wrong to you? Rangers are supposed to be walking tall. You're like, you Hulk Hogan, baby. They've hurt your friends and hurt your pride. You can't let it stand. You can't let it slide. You got to stand up, walk tall, get a 2x4, get a warhammer. You got to waffle a man. You got to make a man pay the price with pain, bruise, and agony, with blood, so he can't get up. And that's the whole theme behind the Ranger. It's this anger. It's this feeling of being wrong, of needing to come back. Maybe you're a ranger because hill giants just busted in your village and ate everybody. Maybe you're a ranger because you were 5 years old and watched gnolls rape your family to death, where you're like hidden under the bed. Yeah, that's going to make you hate gnolls, and you're going to come to get a piece of the gnolls. That might sound dark, but a world like Dungeons & Dragons isn't supposed to be a shiny, happy people REM video. It's a terrifying, losing my religion kind of REM video. It's evil. Those things are evil. They do evil things. It's like you're out there hunting vampires because vampires came and embraced everyone in your village or turned them all into blood slaves. Maybe you were a blood slave and you escaped, and now you have to come back with fury, with fire, with wood, and get with those vampires or ghouls or whatever it is. And you can build that hatred. That's such a great catalyst for popping off with wonderful passion, with wonderful emphasis, with tremendous ire for that ranger. So we need to think about who's done him wrong, why, and how he's going to even the score. That's a great thing about the ranger. Not just, I like to go out in the woods and have animals. No, it's that rage, and you're going to get with somebody. In Unearthed Arcana 3.0, or is it Arcana Unearthed? Whichever one. 3.0, we see a non-magical ranger being introduced as well, which is a cool little option you can take and change and not play a ranger who has magic. Because often it's a little bit of a, why does a ranger have magic? It can work for a ranger, or it might not work for a ranger. It depends on your story. So having an option to opt out of that magic for additional abilities is a great thing. It's always a great thing to be able to take powers out because it allows you to make more and more and more characters with differences, and that's always a cool deal. All right, so that's your ranger. You have in 3.5 a ranger who it's better balanced. Now you have a D8, but now you get +6 instead of +4 to skills, which is huge to me. They might even got like an extra class skill or two as well. But I love a fighter with lots of skills. So the ranger build was very appealing to me in that not necessarily I want to have an animal companion because I don't care about stuff like that very much. It's whatever. But that radiates to a lot of people. A lot of people like to have a hawk or a leopard or whatever it is with them. A big grizzly bear is a popular one. You might have a little raccoon. Whatever you have, you might enjoy that, and that might be something that really makes the game a lot more fun for you if that's something that's cool. So you have a lot of different reasons you can come to the ranger. You might want to fight with 2 weapons or be an archer. The ranger's great for an archer. You might want to be someone who has a raccoon following you around with rabies. You can bite people and give them rabies or whatever it is. Have that rapport with the animals. SPCA woodland style. You might want to have that raging fury, racism, speciesism. You might want to get with beholders. You might want to get with orcs or goblins or kobolds. You might try to get with hobgoblins and get smacked down and rebuked, and then have boots put to you, Maglubiat style. And you will deserve each and every one of those iron shod scale boots. And my character might be there putting boots to you as well. And by might, I mean definitely will. So it's a lot of opportunity, a lot of options beyond, hey, look, guys, I'm the guy that goes in the woods but is still civilized. I'm not a barbarian, but I'm in the woods all the time, You don't just have to play Grizzly Adams. And there's another one, and a good archetype for a ranger, because someplace, what was it? Somewhere. I can't think of it. I was singing for you people too, but I can't think of how it goes. There's a place we call home. Something like that, baby. Grizzly Adams Ranger, big old grizzly bear. It was a show way back in the day. I'm sure a lot of you kids never heard of that before. But you have then of course the Ranger goes in a lot of odd directions in 4th edition to being able to design it in different sorts of builds. From what I understand, has the ability in 4th edition to really be able to do a lot of damage, and it seemed to be a class in 4th edition a lot of people liked. Not tremendously familiar, but I have looked at it. I've seen that they have different ways that you can build it and lined up with different, I'm not sure, they're not feats, but it's like feats, and you choose this and this and this, and you design them out that way. In Pathfinder, they're pretty similar to 3.5, but just, they throw the cloak on them just like they do everybody. You get very, very superhero-y, and they definitely lose some of the grit. I like the flexibility of the racial hatred to the ranger. I think that's one of the greatest things. I think it could be interesting, when you're out there fighting with the 2 weapons, but you gotta be careful, man. Don't go broken. Don't be like, I fight with 2 longswords. That's never a cool idea. A fight with 2 longswords, a fight with 2 scimitars. It's just not cool. Like, people are just like, and just grab your character up and just right on the ground with you. You understand? And you'll be thrown to the ground. Don't sit there trying to maximize all the damage or the potential of the rangers, because it can be broken in power gamery. But if you pull back from that, the ranger can be a wonderful choice for a character and your game, baby.